Hi team, this is Joseph with this week's Soundbite. Okay, I want to talk to you about a very, very important topic that you should have in your toolbox if you are a leader trying to drive any type of digitization effort. It's called robotic process automation. What is RPA? Okay, let me tell you what it's not first. It's not about taking some kind of robotic arm and trying to figure out how do you create a program to automate it from picking up one device to the other. It's not specific to manufacturing or anything of the sort. What robotic process automation is, it's the ability to automate anything that a human being can initiate via keystrokes on a computer or a keypad. So if it requires you to type into a keypad to do certain tasks, robotic process automation can help automate that. All right, well, what makes it so special? Well, let me tell you a story. When I was growing up, I remember the best Christmas of my life was I wanted this thing called a Big Track. And Big Track was made by, I think, Milton Bradley at the time. And it looked like a tank, but it was programmable and it had a trailer on the back of it, right? And you could program this thing to go forward and turn left, turn right, and then dump the tray. And so I got up, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I was so excited. Christmas was here. I opened it up and I began to program it so that when my dad woke up, he could be sitting in his chair. I could put the remote control in it for the TV and it would drop off the remote control right in front of his seat. So I spent hours on it, right? Hours on getting this thing to do everything right. So I get it programmed and all. And then my mom comes down and she is getting stuff ready for Christmas, etc. She moves the chest that was in the middle of the room. That got moved to the left. And then all of a sudden she moved the plant. And so, oh no, my beautiful 5-hour robotic process was no longer valid. Very similar to the experience that many of you probably had if you ever did Excel macros and you change something in the worksheet, something changes and you get that runtime error. Oh no, what are you going to do? The good news about robotic process automation is using machine vision, the software is able to adjust the changes in the environment much, much, much better back in the old days. The second thing that is definitely different is who and the knowledge that's required to make these programs. So as an individual who is as close to the customer as possible, right? Someone that is working with the customer day to day in and day out, those are the people, your business professionals, who can easily use and create scripts in RPA to be successful, to program and drive that automation. So how does RPA work? Okay, so in a normal case, if you had a new work process and you needed a new resource, you would go and you would hire a person. In this case, you don't hire a person, you get a piece of software and that software has a bot, okay? And instead of a work process, that bot executes scripts, and that script is something that tells the bot what to do. Now, this market is really growing. I mean, McKinsey did an analysis. It's almost $7 trillion market over the next 5 years. 70% of organizations have already began to trial and or have a POC associated with RPA. Of that 70% though, only 30% have advanced beyond the trial stage, beyond that POC stage, because RPA really is relatively new. These organizations have spent less than 3 years really working and driving this topic. Okay, so what makes a great RPA process? Well, number one, it should be rules-based, right? So you want something that says, if this, then that. Very clear, very rules-based, and you want a lot of it. You want this transaction to mean and create a lot of value. You want a lot of those transactions to be done. So, what's some examples of RPA today? Well, some great examples, public examples that have been issued. Number one, the U.S. Postal Service, right? In many packages that come to the U.S., sometimes they did not have the weight table on the package. So what's required is for an individual to go in, perform a weight table lookup, go into an international site and do that lookup, and then take that information and then transfer it back onto that package so they can determine what's the best way to price it. RPA was able to automate that entire process. Another case, you had a professional services firm that with churn, onboarding and offboarding employees, they got to bring on 10,000 employees a year. You can imagine the typing errors that can occur. And so through RPA, robotic process automation, they were able to automate that onboarding process and reduce the cost of that process by 95%. These are some big savings numbers. Okay, so I know right now you're thinking, man, this is awesome. Why don't I use this for everything? And if it sounds too good to be true, it typically is. Here's the issue. What I want you to think about RPA is I want you to think about it as a save to invest strategy and then an invest to grow, meaning it's not an into itself. RPA is great when you have a digitization project and it's too expensive to initially get started, or you're stuck in because you have to integrate with various databases. You're looking for, how can I recoup some fast savings so that I can then take that savings and then continue on my digitization path? What's really, really critical is when you think about RPA is you got to remember that you're not fundamentally changing the process. You're not changing the legacy system itself. So that means if that system was out of date, it's still out of date. You're extending the life of that legacy system. So you don't want to have that as a permanent strategy, right? You want to improve that system and increase those digitization capabilities, but you need to get some quick savings out right now to help you invest. The second thing that you have to be careful about with RPA from a longer term perspective is that script management. So remember I told you that, hey, normal business professionals, you don't need to be coders, can create these scripts. Well, if you can imagine, you create one script and you create another script and another and another and another and another and another. These scripts are software code and they're floating in everywhere. And so you can imagine that the management required, if you keep doing this, will become very complex, and you'll have to bring in a resource and a team to do script management. All those things come in around security and authentication, et cetera, et cetera. And pretty soon you've built this huge script management process over an existing underlying system that you needed to replace in the first place. So RPA is great as a save to invest strategy, and then allowing you to invest to win. So if you want to get started in RPA and you want to execute, one last thing I would tell you to be very, very mindful of. When you think about robotic process automation, it is about the ability to quickly scale, right? Remember, it gives you that ability to automate that task and get it out. That means if you're doing something the right way, wow, it's going to scale it across in a blink of an eye. But what does it mean if you're doing something the wrong way? In other words, what is the role of inclusion and diversity in a world of AI and machines? Bias is critically important to manage. Because if you use RPA and typically combine with some of AI platform, if that AI platform is making the wrong decision, and RPA is used to now apply that decision and scale that throughout the business, you have a tremendous problem. So when you're implementing our robotic process automation, is typically going to be tied to AI, make sure you ask 3 questions. Be clear on what decisions you are going to allow this process to make. Be very, very clear on that. Number 2, anytime RPA is tagged to AI, ask the question, what happened when this AI made a bad decision or made a wrong decision? Be able to understand what happened. It is critically important for you to understand what happened when it made that wrong decision. And finally, ask them, how have they eliminated bias on the AI side? So I'm all for robotic process automation. It's a great step to take to allow you to accelerate your digitization program. You should definitely have it in your toolbox. But remember, its purpose is save to invest so that you can then invest to win. All right. Enjoy your week. We'll talk to you next week, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.